Flight of the Crowswing presents A Month of Contrast, Breaking Free, Breaking Down, Sunny Beaches and Deep Snow. Our Hawaii and Pennsylvania adventure, January 2022. After completing our Camper Force gig at Amazon, we left our campground in Verona, Kentucky and headed towards Titusville, Pennsylvania. We were going to visit Beth's parents and travel with them to Hawaii. We left early in the morning, figuring we could be there in time for dinner. It was good to be back on the road after being in one place for so long.
Wait, forgot your wife!
Over the next few days, the weather was supposed to get much colder, so we decided to stop at a Walmart outside of Mansfield, Ohio to pick up supplies to winterize our camper. Pulling away from the Walmart, the truck made a loud bang, and a grinding noise began emanating from the front of the truck. That was when the U-joint we'd been nursing along for the last month had a catastrophic failure, and that was also when we realized we would not be traveling any further tonight. Luckily, there was a La Quinta Inn next to the Walmart. We were able to get a room, and they allowed us to park our trailer in their lot. That night, the temperatures were going to drop below freezing, so we went out and winterized our trailer in their parking lot. The next day, Beth's brother Tom and his friend Mike brought out a truck for us to tow our trailer and a flatbed to haul our truck back to Pennsylvania. Luckily, this part of the trip went off without a hitch, and we made it to dinner only a day late. We soon had our trailer parked in Beth's parents' yard and had it skirted and ready for winter. Last fall, Beth's parents invited us to accompany them to the Big Island of Hawaii, where we would be their escorts and drivers. Of course, we said, heck yeah! Sounds like a great adventure. When we originally made plans for our trip, COVID variant Delta had waned and things were opening back up. When it was actually time for the trip, Omicron had reared its ugly head. We discussed the risk with the consideration that our parents are not as young as they used to be and are fairly high risk. We all decided to continue with the trip while taking every available precaution. That meant full vaccines with booster shots and N95 masks. We flew out of Pittsburgh with a short layover at Minneapolis, then descended on San Francisco, where we had an overnight stay. That evening, we walked to the Taiwu restaurant, which was next door to our hotel. This proved to be an excellent decision. We ordered a table of dim sum, including their crispy duck jows. Weird, but yum. The next day, we were at the airport bright and early. We jumped through all the hoops and got our pre-screening done for the Hawaii health check. This allowed us to visit the islands with no quarantine involved. We landed in Kona on the Big Island and picked up our rental, a Chrysler Pacifica minivan. Yes, the man who claimed he would never be caught dead driving a minivan drove a minivan, once again proving that you should never say never. At least I was dressed appropriately for a Hawaiian chauffeur. Right outside our patio door, we were delighted to see the endangered Nene with babies. There was also a flock of turkeys. They actively engaged in turf wars with the Nene.
Standing right up there. You big boy. Put those turkeys over.
In the end, they seemed to sort it all out. The next day, we decided to circumnavigate the island and get an overview of all the sights to see. Our first stop was the Lapakahi State Historical Park, of which the only thing we filmed was this bird, the saffron finch. Next, we wandered up the coast to the Keokea Beach Park. Our next stop was the Pololu Valley Lookout. On the way to the valley, we made a stop at this picturesque river crossing. It was beautiful, and there is a hiking trail that leads down to the beach, a hike that we decided would have to wait for another day. We stopped in the town of Waimea and had lunch at Merriman's restaurant. Beth had her first Mai Tai of the trip.
But not my last.
We wandered on down the coast. Driving along, we saw a very interesting tree in a cemetery, and we just had to stop. This ancient specimen is a monkey pod tree. This magnificent tree lends its shade over a well-tended cemetery. Wandering on down the coast, we made our way to the southernmost point of the United States. There, we viewed the cliffs at Kalae. This is a popular cliff diving location. We did not participate. Yeah, it's a little hinky. We also visited the Sadie Seymour Botanical Gardens, where I got to practice my lizard photography. Fine. Later that week, Beth and I took a couple of day trips. Our first stop was at the Pu'ukohola National Historic Site.
Pu'ukohola Heiau National Historic Site.
A heiau is a sacred place of worship for Hawaiians, and the Pu'ukohola Heiau was built to fulfill the prophecy of Kamehameha the Great. The park ranger here told us that this is Hawaii's most sacred site. Kamehameha is the man who united the Hawaiian Islands. Located below the sacred temple is a cove where priests in the village would watch and feed the sharks. We were pleased to see them here even today. Maybe not the same sharks, but here they are, black-tipped sharks. Then we stopped at the Lapakahi State Historical Park, where we had seen the yellow bird previously. We'd come back to hike down to see the ruins of an ancient Hawaiian fishing village. Parts of the village have been accurately restored. It was pretty cool, like going back in time. You can even imagine ancient Hawaiians sitting around playing konane on the papamu game board. we sat on the shore and whale watched for a couple of hours.
Damn it, I don't think it was. I saw one come up. Where is the other ship?
To the left of the ship and down.
Oh.
Tail.
I got that. I don't know how in focus it is, but I got that.
We spent the next day at the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Our first stop was the Kilauea Overlook. Right next to the parking lot were active steam vents.
What do you think? Steamy. Look at all the money's down in there.
Apparently
Apparently
people
the
think they can
creatures
buy
from
off
the
the
deep
gods
need-
with cold hard cash.
United States currency to buy whatever it is.
They're gonna need more. Everything in Hawaii is expensive. Heeding the warning signs, we carefully made our way out to the viewing area.
According to my parents, this crater is much larger than it was the last time they were here. The crater collapsed in 2018 following an eruption. Since then, a large part of the crater road and a museum have been shut down, both due to their proximity to the edge of the rim.
I guess they don't want those tourists becoming accidental sacrifices to the goddess Pele. There wasn't much vegetation at the top of the volcano. There was this hardy Pohutukawa, a native of New Zealand. The east side of the volcano is like a totally different world, all lush and green and jungly. Nestled within the jungle is the Thurston lava tube. Across the road from the lava tubes is the Kilauea Iki trailhead, which takes you across the Kilauea Iki crater. And that'll be another hike for another trip.
We are people, we just look like ants.
Beth and I did do one hike. We hiked out to the Keanakakole crater overlook. By facing away from the Keanakakole crater, you can see the lava pit and magma pool in the bottom of Kilauea. The hike takes you up a section of the Crater Rim Road, which has been closed off to vehicle traffic. To learn about the eruptions, we eavesdropped on a paid tour.
This area here, under the crust of the earth, the plate is on the crust, right? And so the islands are on that. That plate moves 1 to 4 inches a year to the northwest.
Gesundheit! After the hike, we hopped back into our ultra-cool minivan and headed down the Chain of Craters Road. This drive is characterized by many, many craters, of which we have no pictures, and of lava rock. The road itself takes a winding path down to the coast. Along the way, Beth and I decided to hike out to the Pu'uloa petroglyphs. According to Wiki, there are over 23,000 petroglyph images, including cupules or holes, circles, geometric designs, human representations, and other anthropomorphs. The most common petroglyph is the cupule. In 1914, anthropologist Martha Beckwith noted that the cupule is used as a depository for the umbilical cord at the birth of a child. A hole is cut into the hard crust and the cord is put in and a stone placed over it. In the morning, the cord has disappeared, leaving no trace. This is to ensure the long life of the child. We left the petroglyphs and drove to the end of the road to visit the Holei Sea Arch. The place was crowded and the parking lot was full, but lucky for us, we got to utilize our parents' handicap path, and we were able to park right next to the trailhead. The next day, we had another beach day. We enjoyed the sun and the ocean, and watching the Hawaiian red-crested cardinals. The next day, Beth and I took off for the east side of the island. Our first stop was Rainbow Falls. The water flows over a lava tube, which legend has it is the home of the goddess Hina, mother of the demigod Maui. Our next stop was the Hawaii Tropical Bioreserve and Garden. We got there early and we were the first people through the gates. It is truly one of the most beautiful places we have ever been. Our next stop on our journey was the Akaka Falls State Park. Apparently, there is a goby fish that has to climb up the cliff behind this waterfall to breed in the waters above the waterfall. What the hell are they thinking? We really enjoyed our time on the Big Island, and Beth and I knew that we would have to return someday. Next stop, San Francisco. Then on to Redwood City, where we rented a Verbo to be near the home of our daughter and son-in-law. They've lived in Redwood City for a couple of years now. She is pursuing a PhD at Stanford, and he is an electrical engineer, working for the Skydio drone company.
That's the palette knife.
We spent a very relaxing week just visiting family. Madeline made no-knead peasant bread, and it was delicious.
Mishka, you want to go to a luau?
Mishka, Maddie and Omar's dog, was a very good boy for the entire visit. Inspired by our tales of Hawaii, Mishka has decided to become a hula dancer. Here, Maddie.
And Madeline took us on a tour of Stanford
Wait,
University,
what are we looking
where she
at?
works.
So that's the physics and astrophysics building. That's the one I'm in.
Uh-huh.
These are the lawns and the mounds.
The mounds. Why are there mounds?
For sitting and enjoying an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who are these people?
Engineering. We don't want to talk about bioengineering.
She showed us her office from the outside. We did get to visit the laboratory, where she is part of a research team working on a retinal implant.
It's funny, it's not even on. All I see is blackness.
Oh, and the headset.
You basically bleach out your photoreceptors and they stop working because they don't have your body feeding it anymore. So to do the dissections, they have to be done in complete darkness. So that's why you have your IR goggles.
Wow, look at the fancy stuff she gets to play with.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
You want to try it?
Wow, your head is really small.
Yes, I actually have zip ties.
Look this way.
And then play
This way, missus.
You are so weird looking.
And there's like a change of depth. So like, because it's showing you where the top is versus.
Wow, this will get really uncomfortable on your nose after a while.
Oh yeah, it's real bad.
And here it is. Dun dun dun! The chip. Her husband Omer rode his motorcycle from work to join us for part of the tour.
How was the drive? How was parking?
But now, like, I struck a deal where I can't share the entire
Get your motor running. Head into the driveway. Sadly, we had to say our goodbyes and head back to the frozen tundra of Pennsylvania. Once again, we donned our N95 mask and dodged viruses on our way through the airports. Our flights took us from San Francisco to Atlanta and then on to Pittsburgh. At one point in Atlanta, we even bodily blocked some young men who were not wearing masks trying to get on our elevator. And finally, we safely arrived in Pittsburgh.
I'm cleaning the snow and ice off the car.
It had changed a little since we last seen it. It was now under a thick layer of snow.
And it snowed a lot while we were in Hawaii.
Good thing you brought something other than flippy flops to
Good thing I brought more than flip-flops. As you can tell by my toboggan.
Choo-choo.
Once we had the car cleared off, it was a long drive on snowy roads back to Titusville. There, we found our trailer under an even thicker layer of snow. The weather outside was frightful, but the house was warm and there was plenty for all to eat. And even Goldie decided it was better to birdwatch from the warm sunroom than to brave the cold and chase them. By the end of January, we said our goodbyes to our parents and headed south to hopefully warmer weather. Thanks for watching.
I tried my hand at photographing the lizard, snuck up on this little guy. But he didn't move. That was because he was dead, which was made worse because there was a park employee watching me photograph a dead gecko.
Tourists. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe.